And this time, we're not going to click new table because we already did that. This time, we're going to create a new column. So for those of you following along, we're going to create a second column here, and we're going to do that by going up to Table Tools and then selecting New Column. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. All right, so what this is going to do is it's going to pop open another new formula. So if you look up in the formula bar here, you'll notice it's kind of blank again, waiting for us to create a new column. And to the right of the equal sign, we're going to give this a proper function. And don't worry, we will take a break here shortly. I see we're going to take a break right at an hour and a half, which is about 5 minutes. So the year function, or the year column that we're going to do, is we're going to leverage the function called year inside of Power BI. And you'll notice there's lots of other functions in Power BI that leverage year capabilities, like same period last year or previous year. But the one that we're going to use is the year function, and we're going to pass into the year function a date column. Okay? So using the year function, we can pass in our date column that we see right here. And the way that you reference a date column is you reference really any column name by using square brackets. So think of brackets like this. That's a bracket, and that's how you refer to a column name within inside of Power BI. So if I use the square bracket, get a little over antsy there with my brackets. If I use the square bracket, you'll notice IntelliSense immediately tries to help me out, and it lists all of the column names that I have within inside of this table that I could potentially select from. So what I want to do is I'm going to select the date column. And you could type it in there if you want, rather than selecting it like I did. You'll notice IntelliSense continues to try to help you out. You can ignore this additional labels. You can also refer to the table name as well if you use single quotes. So it would look something like this. This is optional. The table name is optional here. But if you want to be very precise with how you refer to column names, you can first refer to the table name on the left-hand side to be able to follow along. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and select the data view, that little icon on the left. And this is, by the way, what the data view does is it literally shows you a view of your data. It's kind of like a read-only Excel. You can't come in here and change any of the data. You can read it all. You can't change it necessarily, but you can look at it. And the thing I like about this view is when you're creating a date table with DAX is it'll actually allow you to see the columns and the data behind the columns that you're creating as you go. And when we do that, this is going to be our first exposure into the DAX formula language here, okay? So within inside of the DAX formula language, this allows us to be able to create calculated formulas, calculated tables, calculated measures, to be able to enhance our model and create new objects that our users can take advantage of whenever they're building out reports. Now, the way that this is exposed within inside of the tool is you'll notice this new formula bar appears at the top of my screen. And to make this a little easier to see, I'm going to zoom in on this. And for those of you on a Windows device, you'll use the Control key in your mouse wheel if you want to zoom in or zoom out of that formula bar. Not just Power BI, other solutions outside of Power BI that are considered business intelligence solutions will oftentimes also have a date table. And the reason why a date table is so helpful and can help you in your design is a couple of reasons. So let's talk about, first of all, the why. Why do I need to have a date table? Okay? The reason why it's helpful for you to have a date table, I'm going to give you 3 reasons, but there's probably even more reasons than this. But the reason why a date table can be really helpful with inside of your solutions is, one, maybe you're trying to analyze very specific types of dates. So let's say, for example, you have special dates you want to analyze. Or let's say you want to compare. So what do I mean by that? Let's say you want to compare holidays, or you want to compare weekends, or weekdays, or any other type of special dates that you might care about. There's lots of other examples you could probably come up with. So let's say, for example, you're a retailer in the US. In the United States and many other countries, I think, have adopted it over time, but there's a lot of special sales holidays like Black Friday or Cyber Monday, right? Those are huge sales holidays within inside of the United States and many other countries as well. And if I wanted to be able to compare this year's sales on Black Friday versus last year's sales on Black Friday or Cyber Monday, I probably need to have some indicator within inside of my date table letting me know when that date occurred this year compared to when that date occurred last year, because the actual date itself is going to change. It's always a Friday or it's always a Monday, but the date itself is going to rotate or change a little bit based on the year. And so having a date table allows me to be able to monitor special dates, or when it was a weekend or when it was a weekday. That's one of the reasons why you might consider having a date table. Another reason why you might consider having a date table is if you're dealing with a fiscal calendar. Okay, so some of you are probably familiar with what a fiscal calendar is, others may not be, but a fiscal calendar is something that oftentimes your accounting team will use to be able to do budgeting across a year, but the years are oftentimes different than a traditional calendar. For example, Microsoft, small little company known as Microsoft, right? Kidding, of course, they're huge. But Microsoft uses a fiscal calendar that begins in July. Okay, so what that means is if you ask Microsoft for as far as their fiscal calendar goes, when does the year begin? They're going to tell you the beginning of July is when they started the year 2023 as far as their fiscal calendar goes. Okay, and so their fiscal calendar ends on June 30th, and so the fiscal year of 2024 will begin on July 1st for them coming up. So there's a lot of companies that use fiscal calendars. Microsoft is not the only one. Many of you probably do as well. And the reason why it's helpful to have a date table is a date table will help you map a traditional calendar date to a fiscal date. And so within inside of your date table, you'll have a list of your traditional calendar dates. And then right next to it, you'll have a fiscal period and a fiscal year and a fiscal quarter. So that's why it's really helpful to have, that's another reason why it's really helpful to have a date table, is when you're trying to analyze things over a fiscal calendar. All right, the third reason, and a very popular reason why you would consider having a date table, is if you are trying to design DAX time intelligence. Okay, so let's spell, it's always fun when you misspell intelligence. But DAX time intelligence. Time intelligence is within inside of the data analysis expression language. That's what DAX is, again, as a reminder. But using the time intelligence functions within inside of DAX allow you to be able to compare period over period, or a 12-month rolling average, or of how to create a date table. That's what we're going to be covering next. Okay. All right. And there's just a comment in the chat. There is a great third-party. I'll go ahead and promote this. It's from SQL BI. They have a great tool called Bravo. And I believe it's a free tool that will actually create a date table for you as well. Definitely check that out. That's at sqlbi.com. They're another great company. By the way, they do some of the same stuff we do, but hey, we're friendly with them. They have a great tool called Bravo out there that will actually create a date table for you. All right, but I'm going to show you how to do it on your own. Let's say you don't necessarily want to use another tool. I'm going to show you how to create a date table on your own, and we're going to be doing it using they also do things like explore custom visuals. So custom visuals are an aspect of Power BI that you can work with as well. So there's lots of components here. I'm being very brief, mainly because the screen size I have here. But the data visualization phase is, while many people think of that as one of the core things with Power BI, you might notice that the step number 1 and step number 2, where are you publishing it to? Well, you're publishing it to Microsoft Cloud, what's known as the Power BI service. And from the Power BI service, you'll be able to very easily share your work with others. So you'll share with others. And you'll also be able to do things like schedule data refreshes. That's all what's going to happen once you publish your work to the Power BI service. That's where you're able to then share with others, make sure your data stays up to date. And then you could also do things like row-level security, which we won't have time to talk about unfortunately today. But the idea of row-level security is an